Yes, sir. It is week 2 of NFL training camp. The Birds putting the pads on today to start out this next phase of camp. A lot of headlines surrounding the squad so far as we go throughout camp. First, we got the first-year offensive coordinator, brand spanking new offense. We got an improved defense. Then you look at Jalen Hurts. He's looking a little slimmer, a little leaner, a little meaner, but also a little happier. Nothing but smiles at practice as we go throughout training camp. We are talking biggest winners of training camp so far on this episode of the No Shame with Shane podcast. So, without further ado, let's get it! Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It is week 2 of NFL training camp, especially looking at the Birds. Birds putting on the pads today. But of course, the biggest headline surrounding the Eagles right now in the offseason is their first year offensive coordinator, Sean Mannion. Sean Mannion reportedly loves working with Jalen Hurts so far. It has been a lot of fun, in quotation marks, to be able to work with Jalen Hurts, installs and practice. He's described it as a great partnership with Jalen Hurts since he's gotten there. It's been a very collaborative back and forth. Jalen Hurts really showing a true understanding of the offense. And then it gets to our next biggest headline is Jalen Hurts. What version of Jalen Hurts will we see this year? So far, it is looking good. It was a sort of a slower start week 1, not throwing any touchdowns, but still having some great throws in practice. The attitude was at an all-time high. Nothing but smiles from Hurts and his receivers who he was finding on these drills, either on air or 1v1s. Jalen Hurts, so far after 4 days of training camp, on his 4th day of training camp, now opening up week 2, 3 touchdowns, 14 for 16 passing, only 1 interception. Those are numbers I like to see. But Jalen Hurts, he's also looking leaner. You guys have noticed he's also looking a lot leaner at training camp this year than what he has been, I guess, the past 2 years. Really reminiscent of his 2022 season, which is when Jalen Hurts, of course, was at his best. But honestly, with what we are seeing from training camp so far, what we're seeing physically from Jalen Hurts, what we are seeing execution-wise from Jalen Hurts in practice so far, and then also going off the vibes at practice, Jalen Hurts seems to be really excited by this offense. I honestly think Jalen Hurts is in for an MVP season. Bro, MVP season is loading for Jalen Hurts with how everything is looking. I think an MVP season is really loading for Jalen Hurts. One, because Jalen Hurts, he's looking leaner, which is reminiscent of his 2022, even 2021 self, which is when he was at his best. It's a contract year for Jalen Hurts, so he has that added motivation. He's got something to prove this year. He's playing for that money. He wants to stay in Philly. He's looking for that extension. 3, he looks excited. He actually looks excited to be in this scheme, to play with the guys he's playing with, to also run this Sean Mannion offense. I don't think we've seen Jalen Hurts this excited for a scheme since maybe 2022 when they first got A.J. Brown in the building and Shane Steichen decided to stay another year, was there for another consecutive year with Jalen Hurts. And then 4, Jalen Hurts has already proven he can carry an offense. I know what the reports say, but what all the Jalen Hurts haters are saying right now, and that Hurts can't carry an offense, is very much untrue, because we've already seen him do that. We've already seen him carry and lead an offense before, an offense that was not stacked the way it was last year to the playoffs. So for all those 4 reasons, because he's looking leaner, because he's in a contract year, because he actually looks happy and excited to be there, and the fact that we have seen Jalen Hurts lead an offense before, be the catalyst for a playoff offense before, I really think this is an MVP season loading for Jalen Hurts. MVP season is on the way for sure from Jalen Hurts. Now, I know it's early. We still got another 3-4 weeks of training camp left to go before we start up in the regular season. But I truly do believe, based on what we are seeing right now, I am anticipating an MVP season from Jalen Hurts. One, I'm definitely anticipating an MVP season from Jalen Hurts, just because of how physically he looks in training camp right now. You noticed he looks a lot leaner than what he did last year. And honestly, it reminds me of his 2022 form, which is when Jalen Hurts was at his best. Jalen Hurts at his best, as you know, was a 700-yard rusher and a 3,700-yard passer, was an MVP candidate. That was lean Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts at his best is a leaner guy who is a pure dual threat quarterback. And we know in order to be, and Jalen Hurts obviously shedding that weight, it's making him also, it looks like he's a little quicker from the pocket. He's quicker escaping the pocket. He looks a little more nimble, a little more explosive. And we know Jalen Hurts at his best is a dual threat quarterback. Those are obviously things you need to be in terms of explosive, nimble, quick to react. Those are things you need to be in order to be a dangerous dual threat quarterback. And we know Jalen Hurts at his best is a dual threat quarterback. I think that is the version of Hurts we will see this coming year. Last year he was a little more of a pocket passer because of that Patullo scheme. I think in 2023 he was just way too much of a running back than he was a quarterback under that Brian Johnson scheme. So I think this year we can see more of a balanced Jalen Hurts where he is utilizing his legs along with his arm. So I think because he is looking leaner, which is reminiscent of his peak form in 2022, I think we can expect an MVP season from Jalen Hurts this year, just looking off his physique alone and how he is sort of floating around and moving in practice. Another reason why I think we can expect an MVP season from Jalen Hurts is because he's in a contract year. He's in a contract year. The Eagles did not extend him this offseason after what we kind of saw last year. It was a bit of a disappointing year, but there was also a lot going on behind the scenes, as we know. A.J. Brown would not shut up, consistently complaining, was admittedly a source of drama on the team by leaking false information to the press and just creating more noise around this offense and around this team as a whole. The coaching we know was awful when it comes to Kevin Patullo overseeing the offense. It really put a leash on Jalen Hurts, not letting him play his true game, forcing Jalen Hurts to really play like a Joe Burrow brand of football, Matt Stafford brand of football, just like more of a primary pocket passer than a true dual threat quarterback. So it was a lot of things going on behind the scenes that did impact Jalen Hurts' execution and output on the season last year. So now that he is in a contract year, which is essentially him playing for his money this year, I think Jalen Hurts is going to ball out. Jalen Hurts is going to ball out because, one, he wants to be able to prove the A.J. Brown supporters wrong, that it wasn't Jalen Hurts' fault that AJ couldn't perform. He wants to also prove the Kevin Patullo narrative's right, and that Kevin Patullo was truly a bad coach and that it was his scheme that held Jalen Hurts back. And Jalen Hurts wants to be an Eagle. He wants to be in Philly long term. So he wants that long term money, that long term deal as well. And we always see guys play their best brand of football, usually in their contract years when they are playing for money, when they are playing for a bigger contract. So with Jalen Hurts being in a contract year, that is one of the reasons why I think Jalen Hurts, we can expect an MVP season from Jalen Hurts. Because one, Jalen Hurts has something to prove this year. It seems like he's more free this year as well without having to worry about that A.J. Brown weight and the noise that comes with A.J. Brown, having to, feel like you have to keep one guy happy. But then he also wants the money. He wants that long-term deal in Philly so he can be an Eagle and hopefully retire an Eagle. So because Jalen Hurts is in a contract year this year, I do think that is a pretty big reason why we can anticipate an MVP season from QB1. But another reason why I think we can anticipate an MVP level season from Jalen Hurts is because he actually looks excited. Like, he actually looks happy. Like, I don't remember the last time I saw Jalen Hurts smile this much in the building since maybe 2022, since we first got A.J. Brown in the building. Since then, all the bad offensive coordinators we've had, all the up and down issues with A.J. Brown amid the A.J. Brown drama and all that, we haven't really seen Jalen Hurts smile this much in a few years. It's been a little minute. Like, there's not one clip on the Eagles' Instagram, there's not one clip on all social media that shows Jalen Hurts throwing to his receivers where he is not actually showing joy. Like where he's not actually, where he doesn't actually look at, like in all of these clips, Jalen Hurts has a smile on his face. He's loud, he's vocal. Like we're used to seeing Jalen Hurts over the years kind of be a calm, cool, collected guy, you know, kind of not really saying much, not showing too much emotion. This year, Jalen Hurts so far in the offseason looks like he's actually having fun. Like he actually enjoys being there. It looks like he actually enjoys this Sean Mannion scheme. He enjoys what Sean Mannion is dialing up from the sideline. He enjoys being able to find Dontavian Wicks on those moon balls, on those shots. It seems like he likes what he's seeing from Devontae Smith as well, his new receiver one, sort of building on that relationship and chemistry that they already had, the foundation that they already had. Seems like he likes what Makai Lemon is doing. Seems like he's forming more of a chemistry with Elijah Moore as well. So Jalen Hurts actually looks happy to be here. This is the happiest Jalen Hurts has looked since, I believe, 2022, since Jalen Hurts' best season. So that's a big reason why I think we can anticipate an MVP level season from Jalen Hurts, for sure. But also, another reason why I think we can anticipate an MVP level season from Jalen Hurts is because Jalen Hurts has done more with far less. Like we've seen, like Jalen Hurts has already shown capable of being able to carry and lead an offense to the playoffs. That's before the offense was stacked. We've seen Jalen Hurts do that before. Jalen Hurts was able to take an offense with a rookie Devontae Smith as his receiver one, a busting Jalen Reagor, a underwhelming Quez Watkins, with an 18th ranked defense. He was able to take that team to the playoffs. Was able to drag that team to the playoffs, where they ended up just falling flat against a loaded Tampa Bay Bucks team with the GOAT as their quarterback in Tom Brady. If Jalen Hurts can take that team to the playoffs, a team with an underwhelming receiving core and an underwhelming defense to the playoffs, there's no question he can take this year's Eagles team to the playoffs. You look at this year's Eagles team compared to the 2021 Eagles team. This team has a better receiving core, at least on paper. It has a much better defense, at least on paper. It has he also has competent coaching this year, like he did, at least on the offensive end in 2021 and Shane Steichen. So if Jalen Hurts can do what he did with that team his first year starting, there's no telling what Jalen Hurts can do this year with this Eagles team. Now that he has a developed receiver one in Devontae Smith, a breakout candidate receiver two in Dontavian Wicks, a offensive rookie of the year potential candidate in Makai Lemon, and with a much improved defense that is now being led by Vic Fangio. So Jalen Hurts is definitely capable of being the catalyst of this offense, especially now that you have Saquon Barkley in the backfield as well. Jalen Hurts is definitely capable of leading this offense and taking this offense to the playoffs this year and possibly beyond 1,000%. For sure. For sure. I really hate when I hear people say that Jalen Hurts is not capable of being the catalyst for an offense, of carrying an offense, just because of the talent he has had over the past few years. We've seen Jalen Hurts be a playoff caliber quarterback with far less. Like Jalen Hurts made it to the playoffs, has been to the playoffs without A.J. Brown. He's been to the playoffs without Saquon Barkley. Like he went to the playoffs with a rookie Devontae Smith. Like if Jalen Hurts can take if Jalen Hurts can drag Jalen Reagor and Quez Watkins to the playoffs, you're telling me he can't make the playoffs now with a true receiver one in Devontae Smith, a receiver two in a seasoned Dontavian Wicks, and a breakout offensive rookie of the year candidate in Makai Lemon, and Saquon Barkley in his backfield behind the healthy O-line? Like that makes no sense to me. If Jalen Hurts could do it with that team he had in 2021, like there's no reason to believe he can't do it this year with this revamped offense that he has with what should be competent coaching in Sean Mannion. Like, it honestly makes no sense. Jalen Hurts is definitely capable of being a catalyst for this offense and being a playoff caliber quarterback with this offense this year. 1,000%. 1,000%. But honestly, I'm really excited also for what we could see from Sean Mannion this year for sure. I'm really excited from what we could see from Sean Mannion this year for sure. Reportedly, Nick Sirianni was singing his praises this week during media availability. Jordan Mailata this week as well reportedly called him an evil genius when it comes to dialing up plays from the sideline, really admiring his intelligence, his ability to kind of throw defenses off guard, even to throw the offense off guard in terms of the unexpected, but in a good way. So I'm really, according to all reports on Sean Mannion from training camp so far have been nothing but positive. And we're also seeing that result if you've watched practice just in how everyone is smiling, especially Jalen Hurts. Just Jalen Hurts' smile alone tells me how good this Sean Mannion scheme can be this year, especially compared to what Jalen Hurts has had to deal with in the past with the likes of Kevin Patullo, with the likes of Brian Johnson, even with the likes of Kellen Moore, honestly. Even with the likes of Kellen Moore, all reports are positive when it comes to Sean Mannion in training camp. And I'm honestly excited to see what Sean Mannion does with Jalen Hurts and this offense and a group that is very talented. And I think possibly more talented than what they are being given credit for this season. This could really be an exciting sort of development as we make our way through the 2026 season. But honestly, in this game plan, and another, one reason why I kind of like what Sean Mannion is doing in training camp so far, because it seems like there is more of a balance, especially when it comes to Jalen Hurts. Like Sean Mannion reportedly told the media, as we kind of talked about before, that he thinks Jalen Hurts brings something unique and special to an offense because of his ability to create with his legs and his ability to create with his arm. He praises Jalen Hurts' ability as a dual threat quarterback. Jalen Hurts seems to love Mannion's scheme. Other players in the offense seem to love Mannion's scheme. This offensive game plan seems to have more of a balance for Jalen Hurts in this offense than what past schemes have had under Patullo and Brian Johnson. And honestly, I think Sean Mannion is going to have a good year this year because he is not making Jalen Hurts fit his scheme. He is molding his scheme around Jalen Hurts. We haven't seen past coordinators really do that since Shane Steichen. Sean Mannion is building the scheme around Jalen Hurts, building the scheme up to Jalen Hurts' strengths, as opposed to putting Jalen Hurts in a box and making Jalen Hurts fit his scheme. And that's honestly what we need to, because honestly, Jalen Hurts needs to play his game in order for this offense to make the playoffs, let alone reach the Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts needs to run more. He needs to run more. Jalen Hurts was a pocket passer last year. He needs to run. Jalen Hurts at his best is a dual threat quarterback, and he is one of the best dual threat quarterbacks in the NFL. This scheme seems like it plays to Hurts' strengths more as opposed to forcing Jalen Hurts to play to the scheme. Like Brian Johnson, it's more of a balance than past coordinators, than past schemes we have had. You look at Brian Johnson in 2023, Brian Johnson ran him too much. Honestly, treated him like a running back. It was very predictable. It was the most predictable offense in the NFL. You look at Kevin Patullo last year, Patullo didn't run him enough. He honestly tried to turn Jalen Hurts into more of a pocket passer as opposed to letting him really utilize his athleticism. Sean Mannion's scheme seems to have a better balance of the two. This offseason, Sean Mannion's scheme seems to have a better offense of the two, allowing Jalen Hurts to hurt defenses with his arm, but also getting Jalen Hurts out in open space where he can also create and cause some damage with his legs on the ground. So that's why I think Sean Mannion could have a much more productive year and a much more fruitful year this season than what we saw last year under Kevin Patullo and what we saw in 2023 under Brian Johnson, because I think those guys tried to force Jalen Hurts to mold himself to their scheme as opposed to molding their scheme around Jalen Hurts. Because Sean Mannion seems to be having more of a balance, I think this could be a very fruitful year for Sean Mannion, this offense, and definitely Jalen Hurts for sure. Something I'm very excited about. But honestly, another reason why I think this offense is in for a fruitful year is because of Dontavian Wicks. Dontavian Wicks looks great right now at training camp. I believe he's had 2 big catches so far in week 1. It looks like he's hitting his stride in week 2 this week as well. Now that the pads are on, Dontavian Wicks already having 2 big catches in the deep thirds of the field as a deep threat. Like, Dontavian Wicks could truly be the secret weapon for this offense. Could truly be the secret weapon. Like you look at other guys on this offense. Like, we know as a quarterback, Jalen Hurts is capable of performing at an MVP level. We know how dangerous Devontae Smith can be as a receiver. We know, obviously, who Saquon Barkley is as an offensive player of the year. We know that this offensive line at its best is possibly the best offensive line in all of football. I don't think teams really know what we have in Dontavian Wicks. Dontavian Wicks' stats may not look like much from the past few years, barely scratching 400 yards receiving. But if you watch Dontavian Wicks, he is shown to be a guy who excels in those contested catch situations and catching in traffic. And he's showing that. We're seeing that in training camp so far this offseason. Dontavian Wicks could really be the secret weapon of this offense because of what we are seeing in training camp so far this year. Because of what we're seeing from him in training camp so far, he could be the secret weapon because honestly, if you've watched Dontavian Wicks, you have seen him excel as a deep threat and as a 50-50 catch guy in those situations before in past seasons when he was in Green Bay. So because Dontavian Wicks, low-key, it seems like he's not really getting talked about much, and because, we know who other guys are on this offense, Dontavian Wicks could really be the secret weapon of this offense. Like, honestly, you look at Dontavian Wicks, like, his stats in Green Bay don't look like much. Barely scratching that 400 yard mark through the air. But if you actually watch his tape, if you actually watched his games last year, maybe the year before that, this guy, when the ball is thrown his direction, he will consistently come down with it. Whether it's a 50-50 grab, whether it's in traffic, Dontavian Wicks can be either a security blanket, a short yardage security blanket for Jalen Hurts, or be a true deep threat at receiver too for Jalen Hurts this year. And you look at his stats may not look like much, but that's also, Dontavian Wicks has also been like a 4th to 5th option in Green Bay since he's been there. Like, Dontavian Wicks was barely scratching 400 yards, but playing behind Christian Watson, Jalen Reed, Romeo Doubs, Tucker Kraft, and then if you want to add Aaron Jones, as a pass catcher out of the backfield, like Dontavian Wicks was on a very talented offense when healthy. An offense that he was like maybe the 5th to 4th man down on the list when it comes to targets from Jordan Love. So Dontavian Wicks, honestly, is low-key being slept on in this offense and what he can truly bring just based off what I'm seeing from training camp so far. Like, when you watch his tape, his past game tape from last year, the year before that, and then when you see what he's doing in training camp so far, Dontavian Wicks could really be a secret weapon for this Eagles offense this year for sure. For sure. Could really be a secret weapon. Like, honestly, the Eagles could truly have an elite receiving core this year if Dontavian Wicks is truly able to elevate himself to a legit receiver 2 guy. A legit receiver 2 guy. He didn't really get a chance to take that step in Green Bay because of how loaded of an offense that was talent-wise when healthy. Playing behind Christian Watson, playing behind Jalen Reed, a healthy Romeo Doubs, Tucker Kraft, his improvement. And then when Aaron Jones was in that mix, obviously being a pass catcher out of the backfield, Dontavian Wicks didn't really get a chance to take that step as a true receiver too. If Dontavian Wicks can comfortably step up into that role this year, as a true receiver 2, playing alongside our receiver 1 in Devontae Smith and playing alongside what could be our slot receiver 3 in Makai Lemon, a guy who could be an offensive rookie of the year candidate this year, with Dallas Goedert as well in the mix at tight end. Like, we could truly have an elite receiver to pass catching group in Philly this year. With the flashes Wicks showed during his time in Green Bay and how he's looking right now in training camp, just being a consistent deep threat for Jalen Hurts, a deep threat, but also being a consistent 50-50 catch guy and being able to reel those balls in traffic. If Dontavian Wicks is able to take that step this year, now that he'll have the opportunity and the room to do so, the Eagles could have an elite receiving core this year, this season for sure. But also, I mean, I can't talk about training camp without talking about this defense. Something else that is giving me faith for this season is how well this defense is playing right now and how good this defense has looked in training camp so far. The defense has been consistently outplaying the offense, at least throughout the first week of training camp. At least throughout the first week. And honestly, that is not a concern to me. If anything, that's a relief to me. The fact that the defense is looking this good, especially without Jonathan Greenard and without Jihad Campbell, even without those two guys still outplaying the offense, that is a huge relief to me and a huge comfort to me, because you got to think, this is a completely new offense playing against an improved defense from last year. Like, if you ask any player or coach, they'll tell you it is much harder to learn a new offense than it is to learn a new defense. Like, to learn a new offense, that's new terminology you got to learn. That's new checks you got to learn. That's new triggers, new reads that you now have in different sets and different schemes. Like, this defense is still the same scheme from last year under Vic Fangio. It is still a base 3-4, two high shell, cover 3, cover 4 defense. It's the same. So the fact that our defense this year, that our defense in training camp so far has been consistently outplaying this offense, an offense that is new and still kind of figuring itself out, with the influx of talent that this unit has had on the defensive end this offseason, the fact that this defensive unit is outplaying the offense is a huge relief to me. And honestly, I'm glad that that's happening. I'm glad, because that's honestly how it should be at this point in the offseason. That's how it should be. That's really how it should be. I'm honestly glad that the defense is outplaying the offense, or at least has been outplaying the offense at this point in training camp. I'm glad, because like, this is a new offense versus an improved and familiar defense. An improved and familiar defense. Like, this is for the defense. Like, for the defense. This is the same defense, but just with more talent than last year. It's the same scheme, just with added players. It has, it's got new players, even though that can change some things, new impact players like Tariq Woolen, Jonathan Greenard. But you look at this offense is a completely new unit with new players. I'm honestly glad that the defense is outplaying the offense right now in training camp, because that's honestly how it should be. It's how it should be, because you look at this matchup, this is a completely new offense with a new scheme playing against a familiar defense, but that has improved at least on paper since last year. If you ask any player, any coach, anyone that knows the game of football, they'll tell you learning a new offense is much harder than learning a new defense. Like, it's like, you look at this defense versus offense. This defense it's the same scheme, base 3-4 defense. It has some added players, but it's still the same concepts. You look at this offense is a new scheme with new players, some of which that also have new roles, figuring out new roles on this team. Like, you look at the offense, Devontae Smith, he's stepping up into that receiver 1 role, getting comfortable there. You look at Dontavian Wicks, he is a new incoming receiver who has to develop chemistry with his new quarterback, and he's stepping up into that receiver 2 role for the first time in his entire career. Devontae Smith stepping up into that receiver 1 role for the first time since his rookie year. You look at Makai Lemon, he's a rookie, so he's learning a new offense, and he's learning his new quarterback. You look at Hollywood Brown, he's a new incoming receiver, so he's learning a new offense and developing his chemistry with his new quarterback. Like, you look at this offense, this is an offense with a lot of potential, but it's an offense that also has multiple guys that are learning new plays, that are learning new roles, and a lot of whom are learning their new quarterback in Jalen Hurts. So honestly, I'm glad that the defense is outplaying the offense at this point in the season, at this point in the offseason, because that's how it should be. This defense is familiar. Nothing has really changed concept-wise for this defense, except for maybe the talent that they have on the field, but that's a plus. This offense is completely new and is still figuring itself out. So honestly, this defense should be outplaying this offense at this point in the season. And honestly, that's good for the offense because like the fact that the defense is outplaying the offense at this point in the season while they're still figuring themselves out is a good thing, because this offense, while it is still sort of piecing itself together and while everyone is still getting acclimated to the new system, once they start really beating this defense in practice, that's how you'll know how good this unit is, because they're not going to see many defenses this year that are better than what this Eagles defense will be this year. They're not. They're not going to see many defenses this year that are better than what this Eagles defense will be this year, especially with a healthy Grenard on the field and with Jahad Campbell back taking reps. So this offense, if this offense is able to beat out this defense in training camp this year, while learning a new scheme, while getting new players acclimated to their new roles, while also getting these new players, while these new players are also adjusting and learning their new quarterback in Jalen Hurts, this offense is going to be a problem if that happens. Because if they can do this, if they can beat this defense in training camp, there's no defense in the league that they'll see this year that they also aren't capable of beating. So that, like, honestly, the defense beating the offense at this point in the season, that is something that should definitely be happening, and I'm glad that it's happening. But honestly, this defense, the Eagles defense, can be a top 3 unit this year for sure. They are outplaying Jalen Hurts in this offense in training camp consistently so far, and have been consistently so far without Jonathan Grenard and without Jahad Campbell. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. has been taking reps with the ones in training camp so far, while Jahad Campbell has been away. Jalen Hunt and Nolan Smith have been starting at the 2 edge spots, while Jonathan Grenard is unable to perform, is on the PUP list. So, like, the fact that this defense is outplaying this offense in training camp the way that it has been, at their strength, at their best, this unit can really be a top 3 unit in the NFL, especially in the NFC, for sure. For sure. Like, this defense with Jonathan Grenard and Jahad Campbell back in the mix is going to be different. It is going to be different. Like, Jahad Campbell back in the mix, you now have a top 2 to 3 linebacker duo in the NFL. Jonathan Grenard back in the mix, you now have potentially an elite edge rushing core, an elite edge rushing room in the NFL on this defense. Like, having Jonathan Grenard and Jahad Campbell back in this starting lineup this offseason, this defense will be different, because now, as a complete unit, this is a unit that will have elite edge rushing depth with Jonathan Grenard, Jalen Hunt, and Nolan Smith. It'll have great defensive tackle depth with Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, of course, Mora Ojomo, Ty Robinson, and Uar Bernard, with how he looks like he's been developing in training camp so far. Like, and then when you look at the secondary, the depth could be better for the secondary, but starting wise, it's elite on paper, at least. Quinton Mitchell, Tariq Woolen at the 2 corners. Outside corners, you have Cooper DeJean and Andrew Makuba at the two safety positions, at least in the base defense. Then you have Marcus Epps, who you can throw in there in those nickel packages, moving him to safety and moving Cooper DeJean back to nickel, which is where he's best. So, like, with this defense, with Jonathan Grenard and Jahad Campbell back in the mix, could truly be an elite unit in the NFL this year for sure. And honestly, it makes me think about one of the guys on this team specifically, in Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter, I truly believe, will have a top 5 year. I truly believe Jalen Carter will cement himself as a top 5 defensive player in the league, or at least will play at a top 5 level this year. Jalen Carter will be among the top 5 best defensive players in the 2026 season, for sure. Because honestly, you look at this guy every year, he's a guy that just continues to get better and more comfortable in his position, in his role. He's really been the best player on this defense for the past 2 seasons. This guy in training camp so far has been extremely disruptive. He's already racking up sacks. He's already consistently creating pressure on Jalen Hurts, also making Jalen Hurts better. He's also blowing up screens. He's sniffing and blowing up screens. He's being an all-around disruptor at that D tackle spot. Like, honestly, and he's doing so going up against what sounds like a healthy Cam Jurgens and a healthy Landon Dickerson in practice. Jalen Carter, doing what he has been doing in training camp so far, he's in for a top 5. Like, honestly, Jalen Carter could be a top 5 defensive player in the NFL this year. That's the type of season Jalen Carter can have based off what we're seeing in training camp so far this offseason and what we have seen from him in the past, and just in his pattern and how he has developed every single year he's been in the league so far. For sure. And honestly, Jalen Carter can definitely have a top 5 defensive player in the league year this year, a top 5 year this year, because of one, what he's doing in training camp so far, just being an all-around disruptor, sacks, consistent pressure on Jalen Hurts, blowing up screens. But then also, you also got to look at the fact that Jalen Carter is going to be going up against one of the best centers and one of the best guards in the league every day in practice. Like, this guy is going to be going up against Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson, has been going up against Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson every day in practice. And there's not many interior offensive linemen that Jalen Carter is going to see, especially this year, that are better than those two guys, both individually and as a pairing, when it comes to those combo blocks and those down blocks and those double teams that he'll likely see this year. So the fact that Jalen Carter has consistently beaten those two guys and will likely continue to beat those guys and compete against those guys, Jalen Carter, it just shows you Jalen Carter is in for a top 5 year this year. He's in for a top 5 year this year for sure. But honestly, even looking down the line at the edge position, we gonna have some edge rushers this year. With how good Jalen Hunt looks so far in the offseason, with how good Jalen Hunt looks in training camp so far, it honestly just gives me faith for when Jonathan Greenard comes back. Because if Jalen Hunt is doing what he's doing now without Jonathan Greenard on the field, imagine what he'll be able to do with JG on the field. Like, honestly, Greenard and Hunt can be an elite edge rushing duo in the league this year. I fully believe that. Because now, with Jonathan Greenard back in the mix, you now have a duo that has one guy that is a back-to-back 12-sack guy, and then another guy who just last year led the team in sacks and interceptions. Like, these two guys, Hunt and Greenard, can dominate in this Vic Fangio 3-4 defense. Because a 3-4 defense, it's designed for deception, to disguise. It's designed for deception and disguise. It's designed to disguise who the fourth rusher is going to be on that front group, even though we know Fangio isn't scared to rush 5. We know he's not scared to rush 5. But with that disguise look, these two guys can eat in this defense because both of these guys can rush the passer, but also they can both cover. And we saw that last year with Jalen Hunt doing what he did, creating the turnovers that he did. And Jonathan Greenard can cover as well. He has the athleticism to kind of drop off the line and drop back into coverage and, play those short passing lanes against opposing quarterbacks. So not only can these two guys be an elite edge rushing duo, but these two guys can wreak havoc in this 3-4 scheme under Vic Fangio specifically because of their athleticism and skill set, their ability to both rush the passer, but also cover as well. So this can really truly be an elite edge rushing duo. Honestly, looking at Jonathan Greenard and Jalen Hunt together, they can be among the elite edge rushing duos in the NFL this year. Like, honestly, Greenard and Hunt, they can be up there with Danielle and Will this year. They can be up there with Will and Danielle this year. They can be up there with TJ Watt and Highsmith this year, for sure. They could possibly be up there with Myles Garrett and Byron Young this year, for sure. Jonathan Greenard being a double-digit sack guy. Jalen Hunt having his breakout year in year 2 being a 6.5 sack guy. And if he matches his pattern and continues to take a step forward, he could be a double-digit 10 sack guy to 11 sack guy this year. So you look at Jonathan Greenard and Jalen Hunt, they could truly be an elite edge rushing duo in the league this year. You have your seasoned vet in Jonathan Greenard, who is known to dominate off the edge. And then you have a guy who seems like an emerging star coming off the edge, star edge rusher in Jalen Hunt, who has gotten better every year he's been in the league, who has Super Bowl experience as just a third-year player. So Jonathan Greenard and Jalen Hunt can definitely be an elite edge rushing duo in the NFL this year, for sure. But that's all we got for today's edition of No Shame with Shane. If you haven't already, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to all of our social media platforms. And I will be back later on with more shameless takes.